Welcome to HB Reddit Stories. Today we will see stories of r/am I the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for not using my inheritance, from my parents, from my husband's family? First time posting here. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to use my inheritance to pay for building my husband's sisters a home on our farm? My husband, 52, and myself, 50, have been married for 31 years. We purchased his parents' farm several years ago and paid for it with a mortgage. We have since paid that mortgage off. We also built our forever home on the farm and it is also paid for, and we raise cattle on the farm. His family is always asking for help. His sisters specifically and a couple of his nephews. For context, we took care of his father, mother, and Down syndrome sister when nobody else in his family would take care of them. We were the only ones of his siblings who still had young children at home, but we felt that if we didn't take care of them, the state was going to step in and take them away. In my family, you take care of your family, so we took them in and never looked back. However, I think his family resented us for this and somehow feels like they are owed something because we own the family farm. And for some reason my husband thinks he has to take care of his other sisters even though there is nothing wrong with them except they have low IQs. I have inherited a decent amount of money from my parents. My husband doesn't know the specifics and is upset that I won't disclose the amount. He doesn't have access to the account. He wants me to take some of the money and build a house on our farm, his family farm, for his sisters to live in so they won't have to pay rent anymore or live in apartments. He wants us to pay their property taxes and insurance because they won't be able to afford that, but they can pay their utilities. He doesn't want to charge them rent. Why should I use my inheritance that my parents worked their butts off to earn and pass on to me so that my husband's lazy sisters can sit in a brand new house on their family's farm and never have to pay property tax or insurance or rent? I feel like this is my money and I shouldn't have to spend it on his family. I want to put the majority of it in trust funds to our 2 children so I can pass it on to them. And to be honest, I am seriously thinking about just taking my inheritance and getting a divorce and living happily ever after. So, am I the a-hole? Top comments. Not the a-hole, he should be thinking of his children, not his siblings. After 31 years, I assume there are very good reasons that you are considering divorce. OP replies. Yes, I have been dwelling on divorce for a few months now that I know he has been verbally abusing me and gaslighting me, and I didn't realize it until I called the National Abuse Hotline one night after he yelled at me about the money. Not the a-hole. Divorce him, then take your inheritance and your half of the value of the farm and live your best life. He can get a new mortgage to pay you your share, then move his deadbeat sisters into the house, and be their doormat. Not the a-hole. Congrats for putting your inheritance monies in a separate account in just your name so that it is never commingled with marital monies. Always keep it separate or else your husband will have a claim to half of it should you divorce. If you use any of it on items you own jointly, well then your husband automatically owns half of whatever amount you invested from your inherited monies. Beware of this pitfall. You may, of course, choose to do this at some point, but know what it means: you've given away part of those monies and cannot ever reclaim it. Your parents left you your inheritance to you to spend as you choose. They did not leave it to your husband and certainly not to his sisters. He is wrong to try to guilt you into spending it on his family, even if they weren't lazy. Honestly, I wouldn't blame you for leaving a man who continued to insist you spend your inheritance on his sisters who, according to you, are lazy and not helping themselves adequately. Hopefully though you can resolve this issue without resorting to that unless, of course, you otherwise no longer wish to be married to this man. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my husband's family that I speak their language? My husband Peter, 29M, and I, 27F, have been married for about 3 years. We have 1 child together and I was pregnant with our second. I'm Western Canadian while he is from Germany. We lived in Canada for a long time, but because of inflation moving back to Germany seemed like a better option for us. We bought a nice house in Hanover where Peter is from. The day after our flights to Germany we all visited Peter's family. This was the second time I have seen them, the first was at our wedding. They greeted us and brought us inside of the house, fussing over my son. We had dinner, and soon we left the house, wanting to settle into our new home. We visited Peter's family often for the next few months. But I had started to realize that they would sometimes speak about me in German. They would make rude comments on my hair and makeup, questioned my fashion choices, and overall were just very unkind to me. They also said mean things about my pregnant belly, which I was already insecure about. I ended up talking to my husband about this. I told him that I didn't like the way that they were treating me. I said that I hated how my every choice was judged. He told me that he would talk to his family. The next time that we went to his parents' house, there were no more mean comments. For about 3 months it was like nothing ever happened. I gave birth to a perfect baby girl that we named Lilith. Peter's family was very upset when they heard the name. If you didn't know, Lilith means ghost or of the night. We didn't pick this name because of its meaning, but because it is a name that every girl in my family has had for many years. My middle name is Lilith, along with my mom's, my grandma's, and even my great-grandma's. For a while I didn't visit my in-laws. I didn't want to hear them talk about how I shouldn't have named my daughter Lilith. But yesterday we saw them again. It was my mother-in-law's birthday. As soon as we showed up, things started to go badly. Everybody wanted to hold Lilith, which made my mother-in-law upset because people weren't paying attention to her and made me overwhelmed. I didn't want people holding her. I was going through a pretty bad postpartum depression and it was still pretty early to see people. I let people look at her, but declined when anyone asked to hold her. During dinner I heard my sister-in-law talking to my mother-in-law in German. I heard her complaining about how she couldn't hold my baby. My sister-in-law even had the audacity to call me, and I quote, a fat ugly hokey addict. I turned to my sister-in-law and mother-in-law and told them off in German. I basically said that I have always known what they have said about me, but calling me names was the last straw. I also mentioned how I have known German for almost my whole life. The table instantly blew up. People were yelling at me because apparently this was all my fault. I left with Peter and we haven't talked to them since. So am I the a-hole? Top comments. Not the a-hole, a-holes are never wrong. They remain a-holes by refusing to ever take ownership of their own words or actions, so they never have to change. They can be as judgmental and insulting as they want because they're right and anyone who challenges them must be at fault. So of course it's your fault that they were insulting you, they couldn't possibly have been in the wrong. Sorry you married into a family of a-holes. And you're living in Germany? Do they really think you wouldn't learn the language of the country where you live? They have been extremely rude to you and about you, you are definitely not the a-hole. I think your husband needed to grow a shiny spine as soon as they started and should have told them off instantly, so he's a bit of an A, or at very least a total wuss. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being weird about my brother giving his son my name? I'm 16M, the youngest of 3. My siblings are 10 and 12 years older than me. I was the oops baby. My brother is the oldest at 28. My sister is 26. My sister and I have a great relationship and she's my favorite person. But my brother always resented me and he'll either ignore me or take out anything he dislikes on me, and he's expressed anger at me for existing. My sister had to tell him to stop being a jerk to me far too many times. She'd ask him what his problem is. My brother would say I effed up the family or why did I have to be there. He'd say our sister was his only sibling. I don't know why, and neither does my sister. She said the second he heard our parents were expecting me he was unhappy, and then it got worse when I was born. He wasn't parentified or anything. So that's not why. I guess he just didn't want another sibling. My brother's married, I wasn't invited to the wedding. His wife is pregnant. They're having a boy and they told everyone his name will be Milo, which is my name. I wasn't there for the big announcement, but they were at our house yesterday for dinner and he was talking about the name. My sister brought up the fact it's my name and he said no. That this is his son's name. His son isn't named after anyone. She told him she never said they were naming him after me, but it is my name. I told him it felt like he was trying to make a point of erasing me by doing this. That I wanted to be excited to have a nephew with my name. My brother said I won't have a nephew. My sister told him he was being a jerk still and I am their brother. He waved it off. My sister told me to ignore him. I thanked her. Then he added that I was being weird about the name and it wasn't my business. He said no high schooler gets an opinion on another person's baby, and he said Milo is a really popular name right now at 121 least year. Our parents said nothing. They never do. My brother's wife started talking about how pretty the name is and how they couldn't wait to have their baby. Before they left, he told me again to stay out of things and to stop being so weird. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. Where are your parents in all this? They allowed your brother to berate you, insult you, say you don't exist? Not the a-hole, and if I were you, every time I say brother I would express how exciting it is to have a child named after you and that you can't wait to teach baby Milo all the Milo things in the world. And if brother does name the child after you, because you came first, then at every turn tell Milo, the second, that you are the reason he has the name, and isn't great that there are two of you. See if you can get your sister to do something similar. I am sorry you have had to deal with such an older brother. Opie replies. Yep. They never intervened when he was like this, not even when I was younger. Not the a-hole, your brother and parents are royal a-holes. At this point you have to lean all the way in and drive him crazy and constantly tell everyone how honored you are that they are naming their kid after you, over and over. Insist on calling him Milo 2.0, Junior, Mini Milo, just keep going. Don't let your brother erase or replace or claim the name to be only for him. His wife is an a-hole too. Can't believe I forgot her. Drive them both bananas with it. Don't relent, I'm talking the next 20 years, keep up with it. Not the a-hole, but your parents sure are, your brother too. Info: have you ever asked your parents why they allow your brother to be so abusive towards you? Opie replies. I never asked them. I tried talking to them before, but when they didn't show any sign they cared, I just gave up. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my roommate's twin sister after she took over my room? So I, 29M, a second-generation Indo-Canadian, recently moved to the US for work. Things were going great until I ended up in a house with these two ethnically Polish twins from the UK, Kasia and Nadia, both 27F. Kasia's in med school, and Nadia just passed the bar and is practicing law. Both of them are smart, driven, and, yeah, they're pretty attractive, not that it matters, but they do love their yoga pants. Just setting the scene here. Anyway, Kasia was my original roommate. We met through a mutual friend, and it seemed like a perfect setup. We split the rent 50-50, and I took the larger bedroom because I work from home at times and needed the space. Everything was peachy until Nadia, the twin from hell, decided to move in after she broke up with her boyfriend. Without even asking me, mind you. Suddenly, Nadia was crashing on our couch every night. She was loud, always on the phone, and had a knack for using my stuff without asking. And let me tell you, nothing prepares you for finding your 8 a.m. Zoom meeting shirt on your roommate's sister while she's doing yoga in the living room. But here's where things got heated. Kasia had to go on a 2-week clinical rotation in another city, and she told Nadia she could take over her room. Fine, whatever, that was between them. But then, Nadia decided that my room was better for her mental health or some nonsense because of the natural light and feng shui. So she started moving her stuff into my room while I was at work. When I got home and saw this, I nearly lost it. My bed, my desk, my PS5, all of it was shoved into the smaller bedroom, and Nadia had turned my room into her own little law office/yoga studio combo. Kasia, from wherever she was doing her rotation, thought this was all just a big misunderstanding and that we could sort it out when she got back. So, in my infinite wisdom, or maybe stupidity, you decide, I told Nadia she had 24 hours to get out. When she didn't budge, I started moving her stuff back into the living room. She flipped out, threatening to sue me for unlawful eviction, which I'm pretty sure isn't a thing when you're not even on the lease. The next morning, she was gone, along with Kasia's expensive espresso machine, my favorite hoodie, and all the toilet paper in the house. Kasia is furious at me for mishandling the situation and says I've caused a rift between them. Nadia, now back at her ex's place, is telling everyone I'm an a-hole who discriminates against Eastern Europeans. So am I the a-hole for kicking out my roommate's twin sister after she took over my room? Top comments. Not the a-hole. You didn't cause a rift between the sisters. Nadia did it by overstepping several times. She wasn't unlawfully evicted since she was never a legal occupant in the apartment. Tell cashier your hoodie plus any of the toilet paper you purchased needs to be returned ASAP, or you'll find a police report about theft from the apartment, which will include the expensive espresso machine. OP replies, "Wouldn't the cops just accuse me of wasting their time? Not the a-hole. Do a full accounting of the stuff of yours they've taken, and tell cashier that if it's not returned you'll take them to small claims court." Nadia has no idea what boundaries are okay to push. Taking over someone else's private space is not okay, and she's not on the lease, and even if she was, it wouldn't be okay for her to be in your space. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting my neighbor's Airbnb guest's car towed? So, I've had a ton of issues with Airbnbs in my neighborhood in the past. I won't get into all of it, but just know that it's been a nightmare, including my house being hit by 20 bullets during a gunfight at a neighbor's Airbnb party earlier this year. Fast forward to last night, the guests at the Airbnb next door were blocking our shared driveway. I went out and politely asked them to move their car. They responded rudely, saying, "Ain't got the keys." No, and then drove off in another car. I've tried reaching out to the Airbnb owner before, but she hasn't responded to me since May. Given her track record of ignoring my messages, I assumed she wouldn't do anything this time either. So, I shot her a quick text and called the non-emergency police line, explained the situation, and they said they would make the guests move it. Well, it turns out they towed the car instead. Now, the Airbnb owner is furious, saying I didn't give her guests a chance to move it. Am I the a-hole for calling the cops on them? Add on, thanks for all the advice, everyone. I've decided to send her the message below because I think it's important to take the high road in this situation. I realize she could make things much worse for us if she completely stopped caring about what her guests do, so I'm trying to keep things as civil as possible. That said, I've also made up my mind that if something like this happens again, I won't bother texting her. Instead, I'll go straight to the authorities. I think it's the best way to handle things moving forward while ensuring our peace and safety. She texted me this morning after you called the police, only minutes after notifying me they had it towed. They didn't have an opportunity to move it. My response tentatively will be: 1. I did ask them to move. Unfortunately, they responded with, "Ain't got the key." No, and then proceeded to get into another vehicle and drive away. 2. I didn't wait for your response because I haven't heard back from you in a while regarding previous messages. I've sent 4 messages since May, and I didn't receive a response to any of them. I'm sorry to hear that your guest's car was towed. I know how frustrating that can be. My only intention in calling the police was to have someone with more authority request that they move the car, as they had refused to do so when I asked. I never asked for the car to be towed and was quite surprised when I found out that it happened. Top comments. Not the a-hole, but you did give them a chance to move it and you texted the owner who did not get back to you at the time. The non-emergency line was an option and you took it. I expect the owner to be much more responsive to you in future. Perhaps the listing should include info that the driveway is shared. Read the listing and see what it says. OP replies. So I shot her a quick message and at the same time called the non-emergency line. That's why she's pissed, because I called the police only minutes after notifying her. But she's never rectified anything in the past or responded to me. Why would I expect that now? One of her guests literally threw up in front of my garage and she refused to clean it because I couldn't prove it was them. Not the a-hole, not going to lie. At first, reading the title, I thought you may be overreacting. Then, not the first time you have issues with your neighbor's place. You talked to the guest. You messaged the owner. Honestly, I would have called after I talked to the guest and they refused. Wouldn't waste time reaching out to the owner since there seems to be a lot of problems with the owner and she refuses to answer. OP replies. You are right. I won't reach out to her anymore. Part of me thinks the Airbnb thing could really work great with host involvement, and I've always wanted to give her that opportunity. However, I realize that it's not my responsibility to make this work for her, especially when there seems to be a lack of communication and ongoing issues. I think I'll just focus on ensuring my own peace and safety from now on. Thanks for your input. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel HB Reddit Stories.